Christ that has struggled with trauma, PTSD, anxiety, childhood sexual abuse, and sexual addiction. I'm currently working on anger, codependency, and healing my marriage. My name is Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, everybody. Before recovery, I was a high-strung, stubborn, and stressed-out mother of 4. I was dealing with high blood pressure and trying to cope with anxiety and PTSD, as well as a whole lot of grief. The grief my heart was holding is what brought me to Celebrate Recovery. As a child, I was very smart, fun, and silly girl. I really struggled with my identity because I was supposed to be a boy. Back in 1982, when the ultrasounds were not as fancy as they are today, my parents were expecting a boy. Well, surprise, I was born, and a month late, and came into this world overbaked. My parents had my older sister, Rebecca, and I'm the middle child, and my brother Benjamin is 2 years younger. We were all Bible names. I had felt as a middle child I was unwanted, and really struggled to do anything right in my parents' eyes. I was taught to love everyone and the Lord growing up in a religious home, but our home was always chaotic, never calm, and not my favorite place to be. I spent most of my time at my great-grandma's, my grandparents, and my aunts. I was taught that my prayers were more like praying to a genie, and if I was being good or did good, I would be blessed and they would be granted. I have since learned that it is not by works, but by faith in Christ alone. As a child, I had several crazy life experiences that are unforgettable. I would often hide away from my family to feel peace or to just be in nature. I would play in the irrigation ditches when Syracuse, Utah had farmland still. I would avoid my home and spend a lot of time at my great-grandma Cleo's farm, either in a barn, laying and jumping in the hay, or swinging on the tire swings. With the smell of butterscotch and milk chocolate cookies in the air, she was an amazing baker. She worked at the kitchen at my elementary school back when they homemade everything. I still have many of her amazing recipes, and I loved her spirit. She always taught me service and kindness, and she loved others and made sure that she showed her love in her own fiery and feisty way. My parents both had very complicated lives before I was even born. My dad had lost his father at 8 years old and was raised by his mother and older sisters until enlisting in the Air Force. His mother passed away when he was just 21, and my dad worked and attended night school at Weber State University to get his engineering degree. I believe that my dad did the very best that he could to raise us without ever really having a father figure in his life and going through all that he did in his younger years to take care of his ailing mother, as she had many sicknesses that she had dealt with. My mother's side of the family was the only family I really ever knew, and she was adopted into that family. They were supposed to be a wonderful family. My grandparents would become the hardest part of my life story. My grandma Cleo owned a large amount of farmland off of 1000 West and 2700 South, RC Village Street as we called it. I grew up on the street with all my first and second cousins, and my cousins were some of my best friends as we spent many hours together. My childhood best friend lived just 2 houses away from my grandparents. Her name was Rebecca, and like my sister, we also called her Becky. Becky was such a kind and sweet girl and a friend to all. She was a fighter and fought leukemia 3 times. The 3rd time, she had gotten pneumonia after playing outside at recess with us that winter. And it was so hard for her to fight, and that disease took her young life. We were just 11 years old. I will always remember all the fun we used to have jumping on the trampoline and her wig would fall off. We would laugh and giggle for hours just being kids and having the best times of our lives. I know that she is one of my angels and is still always with me. My parents fought a lot, and I would avoid my house by going to my aunt's house or hiding under the stairs and huge blanket forts, taking naps, and many times my parents not being able to find me. Often the cops were called because I would be missing for hours, and I had learned it was easier to avoid the issues and problems problems. Since I've been young, many problems were just swiftly swept under the rug, so to speak. As a child, I spent a lot of time feeling unheard and misunderstood. My mom had some major medical issues and wanted answers. Since she was adopted by her parents, my only grandparents I had up to this point, they could not provide these answers, and this sent her searching for her birth mom. She had hired a private detective to find her. Crazy coincidence, but her birth mom had hired the same lady. It didn't take long, and she ended up finding her when I was just 10 years old. She was found living in Salt Lake City, about 20 miles away, and my mom met her birth mom, even though her adoptive parents were totally against it. She was so loving and accepting of us. Her name was Genevieve, and she was an angel in my life. It was absolutely amazing to have a new set of grandparents that often showed up to my dance recitals, soccer, basketball games, and my scholarship pageants. She spent many weekends at our home with her and her poodles. She loved those 3 little poodles. She loved us and treated us like she had been there all along. I only had her sadly for about 6 years in my life before she passed away after an ankle surgery because it spread the cancer to her whole body. At 16, losing one grandmother was hard, but I lost my great-grandma Cleo as well. This year was a hard year for me. My parents' separation would happen the same year and send me into some sort of depression. As a teenager, I was very defiant, especially with my mom. My parents got into a huge fight just right after my 16th birthday, where my mom had spent too much money on my birthday party and only a few friends came because it was all over Easter break. After a few days of their fighting, they separated. I ended up leaving with my dad to go live with him due to the struggles with my mom and her verbal and physical abuse against me. I would end up going back home after a few months of living with my dad. My mom's lawyer had convinced her to have me come home so that she could get child support and so that she could also keep her home. During my 10th grade year, I got mono. I gave up everything that made me happy. I was so ill and I couldn't go to school and was put on homeschool. The homeschool teacher wouldn't come to my house because of the mono, and this put me very behind. I had to quit band. I played the bass clarinet, and I loved basketball and soccer and couldn't try out for either of those. Clogging practice was very difficult to continue to learn the steps while sitting on the bench. Mono took most of the joy out of my life at that time. I had to take and make up all my extra credits by working full-time during school and during the summer during my 11th and 12th grade years. I was able to get all my classes caught up and barely graduate with my class and walk across the stage. I focused and worked so hard and was able to graduate with my high school diploma. This was a huge accomplishment for me, and I was so grateful for the strength and healing that I had been given to endure. These experiences of loss, sickness, family dysfunction, all during my childhood had a huge impact on my self-worth and my coping strategies as I entered adulthood. I often struggled with anxiety and crippling fear that I often found myself falling into. I met Reggie, my husband, when I was just 20 years old. We met on Cupid.com, and I had just gotten my own first apartment and started dating him when my oldest daughter Zoe was just 2 years old. I am forever grateful to my firstborn Zoe, she's my daughter, and all that she has taught me through her strength to persevere through some of the toughest trials, her wisdom, and all the love and service that she continues to give her family. I couldn't have children for many years after Zoe, and I always have said that God has given me my children not when I wanted them, or sometimes even prayed for them, but when I needed them. It wasn't until 8 years later I would have my second daughter, Taya. She came into our lives at just the right time with lots of love, joy, and happiness to give. She had golden curly hair, and I was in shock at her natural beauty. It was just 12 weeks later that I found out that I was pregnant again. This time it was with a boy. It was so hard being a new mom. I had just lost a great job while I was on maternity leave, and I fought that. to then being pregnant again so close together. Anxiety and depression was a constant in this time of my life. I ended up having my son Carter 1 month early due to preeclampsia. I had another golden blonde-haired baby, and I called him my handsome blue-eyed wonder. He has brought so much laughter into our lives and taught us consideration for others. He has also taught us a whole lot of patience with all his fits that he would spin around on the grocery store floors. Man, those were some embarrassing days, and he has still yet to live it down from his older sisters. Reggie, my husband, had to deal with a lot with both me and my daughter in therapy, but also our changing moods. I had also struggled with anxiety and PTSD flashbacks that were related to sexual abuse that I endured from my grandpa during my childhood. I had stuffed it deep in my brain, and when it came to the surface, it was overwhelming. We were all walking on eggshells. Reggie and I had separated just a few months after I'd had Taya. I went to live with my mom in her basement, being pregnant with 2 kids in tow. My marriage was crumbling, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. We were ready for divorce until about 2 months after my son was born. My husband wanted his family back, all in one household, and he started towards getting us a house. We had been living in apartments for about 10 years prior to this, and our family was growing and we needed a home to raise our children in. We moved into our forever home 14 years ago in Roy, Utah. My 4th child, Livia, is such a gift of light and healing and has brought so much love into our family. She was given to me as a beautiful gift out of a bad situation. She was conceived during a time of extreme marital distress, and I had chosen my sexual addiction and wanted to feel something different in my life, with me lacking self-confidence. I had chosen to step out on my marriage and ended up pregnant with her. I was told at around 11 weeks that I was losing her by a doctor other than my regular doctor. I saw my regular doctor 2 weeks later, thinking that he was setting me up for a D&C. The doctor proceeded to do the ultrasound and said, "Let's see this baby." And I explained, the other doctor thought I was miscarrying. But there was a baby in there with 10 fingers and 10 toes. I was inconsolable because I had thought I had already lost her. I knew she could be this other guy's or my husband's baby. I spent that whole 9 months feeling very filled with guilt and shame and very alone. My husband and I decided to reconcile, and he has accepted her regardless of whose baby she was. Our daughter, Olivia, ended up not being my husband's, as we took a DNA test to find out when she was about 2 weeks old. It was a very difficult time for our family, and I stayed faithful, even when everyone knew, and the shame and guilt I felt was so heavy. It did not go away for many years. I struggled with my mental health and self-esteem issues until I began to forgive myself and let go of my failures and choices and give them to God. I surrendered over and over all the pain and hurt that I was feeling and the pain that I caused my family. We both have grown so much in our marriage of 20 years now. It's amazing to see what God has done in such a short time, even since starting Celebrate Recovery almost 2 years ago. God has been so good to us, our children, and has truly blessed us all for our faithfulness with so much grace. What brought me to Celebrate Recovery was my grief and PTSD. I was actively looking for a grief group due to almost losing both of my parents. In June of 2021, my dad was admitted into the hospital for a heart attack. I believed prayer would be what saved his life besides the work of the surgeons. On Father's Day at around 10 a.m., I was called to the hospital. Once there, my dad, with tears welling up in his eyes, explained that he needed to get a pacemaker installed. I said, "Dad, it's okay. It's going to help you. It's going to allow you to live longer." Before I knew it, my dad said, "Oh no, it's happening again." He had lost consciousness and flatlined. The doctors and nurses came rushing in to perform life-saving measures. My stepmom and I went to the hallway and held each other up, both trying not to collapse. I fell to my knees in that hallway, and I begged God to not take my father from me. God spared him, but the next several days and weeks were a scary time for our family. His heart condition was extremely severe, and we were all at high risk of losing him. We were all willing to do whatever it took to save him. The prayers that we prayed in that tiny hospital chapel with the stained glass windows were answered. His life was spared. I have such a gratitude for God and the medical team that worked on my dad. I will forever be grateful to my stepmom, my sister, my brother, and my mom, and the countless other family members and friends for helping me get through such a crazy time that triggered my high blood pressure to rise, and PTSD, and the anxiety was back like an old mean friend. The anxiety that was with us for a few more months until Dad was completely healed and had a clean bill of health. I will be forever grateful to God for allowing us more years with my dad. After my dad's heart attack, I quit drinking, as it never really made me feel good in my body at all. That was 4 years ago in July. About 6 months after my dad's heart attack, I ended up in the emergency room with chest pain and feeling very unwell. They found that I had extremely high blood sugar and liver disease. This was so confusing as I was only a social drinker and had stopped drinking for about 6 months due to the high blood pressure and the anxiety. The liver disease was the most shocking, and I sought help for that, but nothing ever really came out from it. I've struggled for about 22 years with PCOS, which is an ovarian and hormonal condition. It has caused hair loss and low energy and many other symptoms. I felt that the medical doctors have still yet to help me with. Some of the medications have caused kidney disease, and I pray that God heals my whole body, and that I can be a testament to only what that healing that Jesus can provide. Just 9 months later, I got a call from my cousin that lives next door to my mom. I was thinking my mom, Vicky, was just being Vicky and didn't charge her phone or feel like answering or left her phone somewhere. I started to become concerned in the evening when I still couldn't get a hold of her. My husband and daughter got in the car with me at around 10 p.m. and we drove over to her house. It was about a 10-mile trip to Syracuse. And I looked in the tiny bathroom just past her bed to find the door wouldn't open. I got it open to see my mom's legs and lifted up her leg and moved the door so that I could get into the room beside her. She couldn't talk. Her blue eyes were not blue anymore, but they looked like glass. She was barely breathing, and I was so scared that I yelled for my stepdad to call 911. I stayed with her, telling her it was going to be all right, and I wasn't going to leave her. I still don't understand how she fell the way she did, how she laid there for so many hours without any of us finding her. Her toes had been burnt by the heater vent, as it was February 28th. The EMTs and paramedics arrived just in time, and they took her to the ambulance to Davis Hospital, and there they discovered that she had had an aneurysm and a cerebral stroke. They couldn't fix it there, so they life-flighted her to the University of Utah Neurocritical Care Unit. They took her for brain surgery to clip the aneurysm and place drains to reduce the cerebral spinal fluid and swelling. I wish I could have gotten there sooner, so her damage to her brain wouldn't have been so severe. The next several weeks and months were scary and uncertain times. She was in the neurocritical care unit for 32 days, following several weeks where she was unable to even walk or stand. It took 6 long months to get her back to the point where she could return home safely. During this time in all of our lives, we didn't leave her side. We wanted to ensure that she received the very best care, and she could, and she did. The last few years since her aneurysm, she's really struggled to get her life back, but I'm forever grateful to the prayers and the love that our family received from neighbors, extended family, and everyone that prayed during that time. I'm seeing my mom come back to me, with God's help, more and more every day. I stayed faithful, and God has truly shown His grace over my mother's life. She really only lost a part of her brain where she initiates tasks, meaning that God has allowed her to slow down and enjoy her life rather than rush and the constant busyness that she was doing before. We are so happy that God has given her many more years with us, her beloved grandchildren, and now great-grands. It wasn't until my first step study last year that I began to see how not loving myself was hurting me, and I had been blaming everyone else. That first step study gave me a place to heal, a purpose for all the pain, and friends that would now become family. By doing my second step study this year, it has been one of the biggest blessings to not only see my growth as a leader, but seeing how God is working and healing other people's lives. It is just amazing to have a front row seat to that healing that only can happen in a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program. And it just brings so much healing and joy. This summer, with my husband's help, I was able to attend the Celebrate Recovery Conference in Lake Forest, California. It wasn't until we arrived that I found out the heartbreaking news that my grandma only had one day left to live. I had always struggled with the lack of her protecting us as kids from an abuser, since I had many flashbacks from the abuse that I had sustained as a child. With the help of my family, my CR friends, God, and the recovery work that I had done up to this point, I was able to process and grieve her death while at the conference. I was able to still get so much out of the conference, and I was so grateful for the ways that God showed up for me that week. Without a Christ-centered program, I believe I would not have healed as much as I have in the last 2 years. Until my grandma passed, I could not even have written this, as I hadn't learned about being able to truly forgive someone and accept the holy forgiveness that only God can provide. Step 4 in both of my inventories has probably been the most impactful step, as it has allowed me to let go of so much of my past and move forward in Christ's love for me. He was always there, answering my pleas. My relationships have changed because I can now be me. I was trying to be everything that everybody else wanted me to be, but I grew up. I stepped out in faith, and having been praying for strangers, sharing God's love through my life lived with Jesus. My old life was difficult to live. I now wake up saying the Serenity Prayer even before I get out of the bed. I know this has been a huge change in my life because I now walk with God and have a personal relationship with Him. I have received the benefits of my relationships flourishing, happiness, and true healing in my family, my marriage, and my children. My life verse is Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar up on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. To the newcomer, I say keep coming back. Keep seeking the face of Jesus through Celebrate Recovery. And keep laying all your addictions, frustrations, and pain at His feet. Don't give up on your blessing, because your blessing is on the other side of fear. God has you right where you're supposed to be at the right time. I will continue to share the good news of Christ and what Celebrate Recovery has done to change my life. I will be sharing it far and wide to all the earth, wherever He takes me. I plan on continuing to share my love for Jesus in leadership and in future step studies, and I look forward to all that God has to use my story for His purposes. One of the biggest takeaways I would like somebody to leave with from my testimony is that God has never left me. He has never forsaken me, and He goes before me and makes a way, even when there seems to be no way. He brought me out of some of the darkest places of hurt, abandonment, pain, shame, fear, guilt, and anxiety. If He can do it for me and change my life around, He can do it for anyone. Because He has made you and formed you in your mother's womb, He knew and formed me in my mother's womb, even though I was a month late. He knew what He was doing and placed me in the right place at the right time for a time such as this. And I'm forever grateful to God for being my comforter, even when I was not sure I could keep going. Persevere and win the race. The prize is seeing our precious Jesus' face at the holy and pearly gates. Thank you for letting me share.